What's it called? Call That Radio.
You Call That Radio.
Okay, yeah. This is Steve Mason, and you're listening to You Call That Radio.
I've got a lot of time for Steve, and it's an absolute honour to have him on this podcast. So just before we go to that, I'd like to thank all the Patreons who have been subscribing to the show and put in monthly donations. Physically couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting the show. If you do want to support the show, you just go to patreon.com/You Call That Radio. And you can join the Mincy Tatties crew for about £2.40 a month. And there's different tiers you're able to support it financially even more. Every single penny is really appreciated. And if you do subscribe, we've got some big plans for you. We've got some big plans for some bonus material, some raffles, some discounts. If you subscribe, you'll get a message in your Patreon. But if you can't afford to subscribe, then don't worry, the show will remain free. Check out the previous episodes. There's quite a lot up there now. And if you still want to support the show but you can't afford to subscribe, then just maybe leave us a review. Apparently, that makes a difference. So we don't really have many reviews on Apple or anything like that. So if you want to give us a 5-star review and some nice words, that'd be brilliant. Or just tell a friend about us, or share it on your social media if you enjoy the show. And that's how you can help us. So that's one more time, that's patreon.com/You Call That Radio. Really appreciate the support you've been giving us. Some big plans in the pipeline. I'll be just doing nothing but this for the next few weeks. I've got some interviews in the bag, some big plans ahead. So I hope you join us for the ride. And final shout outs to Morphamish, who has been mastering the audio in all the episodes so far. He does a brilliant job. Thank you, Hamish. Gyro Babies are playing a 10th year anniversary special show back at Ivory Blacks, where it all began. So 10 years to the day of our very first gig, we're playing the exact same venue. How spooky is that, eh? Tickets on sale now at Skiddle and at Ticket Scotland. If you're a Patreon, you'll get a 20% discount. And there is going to be a big after party, which is under construction at the moment. But that's it for now. It's time for the main event, an interview with the legendary Steve Mason. It's a very interesting chat, and I hope you enjoy it. Cheers.
I saw a fox after midnight. I found Jesus just too late. I saw a fox on the hilltop, over by the disco and the simple sin. I listed cold as a mantra. True believer was the mood I was in, and I love the night. I feel it all the time. The beast is in my mind. Prove it all the time. Show you what I find.
So thank you very much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And so I just going to ask a few questions, man, and we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah.
But just go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So what music did you listen to when you were growing up? And was there a song or a band that made you go, yeah, I want to do that?
The first record that I ever, I wasn't old enough to go and buy a record, but I asked my mum to get me Money, Money, Money by ABBA. And that was the first sort of record that I sort of wanted. I think I asked to get it because I wanted to listen to it again and again and again. You know, I didn't want to wait for Top of the Pops to come on again. I wanted to hear it before that happened, you know. So
Yeah.
I think that was the first time that I really kind of connected with pop music and with a melody, and I sort of I think I got pop music really really early on. I can't remember how old I would have been, probably about 6 or 7, maybe something like that, maybe 5, I don't know. But then the first record I bought myself was Kings of the Wild Frontier, Adam and the Ants single, and and that really felt like my thing, you know, because I'd gone out and bought it with my money, and it was obviously really different at the time, really different from ABBA. It was like much more kind of. I mean, it sounds crazy to say it now, but when you're a kid, it kind of felt a bit dangerous and edgy, and like it was exciting, you know, because you didn't really understand at that age. You didn't really understand what it was all about or anything like that. And then slowly after that, I kind of actually not that slowly, quite quickly after that, I discovered punk. Because once I'd started reading about Adam and the Ants and the early, you know, the fact that they'd been a punk band, and well, they kind of were a punk band when they started. And then there was in the house there was always an acoustic guitar. It only really had about sort of 3 or 4 strings or whatever, and nobody really played it. It was my mom's, but she never played it. I don't know why she had it, but it was always kind of sitting there. So one day I picked it up and I managed to to play just on one string, Anarchy in the UK, the Sex Pistols track. And I suppose that kind of really hit me like a ton of bricks, that you could sit at home and and pick out that melody, and I could actually play that melody. And I'd never picked up a guitar before, but I realized I must have had an aptitude for sort of just working out a melody, or just, you know, just working out something somebody else has written just on one string. But it really suddenly I could sit in my room and make music. And fair enough, it was somebody else's song, but it was still, that was a really exciting realization for me, that you could play these things. You know, it wasn't like listening to Wagner or something like that, or even ABBA, you know, which seemed much more complicated. This was really simple stuff that even an 8, 9 year old boy could play, and that was really fucking exciting. Yeah.
It's weird that there's something similar happened to me. I was grounded, and my dad had an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
I remember picking out Jesus and the Mary Chain, cracking up the line from that acoustic guitar. I had that same moment where I thought I was going to be a bass guitarist. I don't think I can really play anything else apart from that since. But, but it was that exact same feeling. It was amazing. So when did you start taking the being a musician seriously?
Well, I mean, when I was at primary, so all that stuff that I've just told you obviously happened at primary school, and me and a mate of mine, who is actually James Yorkston. I was at primary school with James Yorkston, and me and him got really into the punk thing. You know, like it was all over by then. This is like 1980, you know, 1981. So it was all over by then, but there was a record shop in St Andrews, and we used to go in and order records there. So the first punk record I ever ordered was actually "Oh Bondage Up Yours" by X-Ray Specs, and I loved that because there's something about the fact that it was a woman singing that made it even more exciting. I don't really know what it was. I think it's because it felt even more dangerous. That it felt it was I can't really explain it. I guess because women up to that point, in the little experience I'd had of making music, it was mostly men that had been doing it, and I guess you always, certainly at that time, you always think of men as making music, and the fact that it was a woman that was singing on that, and then I discovered Susie and the Banshees, and it was, I don't know why, it was more exciting, but. So we formed a little band at primary school when all this was going on, and when nothing happened. We basically formed a band. We drew about seven album covers, and then the manager ran off with the money, basically. It's like,
So
everybody
changed.
paid. What's that?
Nothing much has changed then.
No, man. So everybody paid 20p to be in the band, and the fucking manager, he went off to the sweet shop one day and never come back with the money.
Did he end up doing well? Did you ever hear what happened to him?
Yeah, he ended up. He's actually a massive guy in TV. Yeah. So anyway, so then I went to secondary school, and by that point, I wasn't really. My first instrument really has always been the drums. Like when I was listening to Adam and the Ants and all that, I got really into the drum thing because they had two drummers, and I got really into that. And so I wanted a drum kit, but we couldn't get one. So my mum got me some drumsticks. So what I used to do was arrange the pillows on the bed and play the drums like that. And then eventually, when I was about probably 14, eventually, because I'd been playing drums with the drumsticks by that point for about 3 or 4 years at least. She sort of gave in. She thought, right, we'll get him a little kit. So they got me this little kit for about 15 quid, and I just played it all the time. So there was a band at school, and they wanted to play. Do you know? It's like a mid-60s American surf track called "Wipeout" by the Safaris. Do you know that?
I don't know off the name of it.
It's an instrumental. It's like there's a lot of drums in it. It's mainly drums. And they wanted to play that song, and I could play it, but the drummer they had couldn't play it. So then I got a taste of the ruthlessness of rock and roll, and when they booted the drummer out and got me in because I could play this song. So that band, we actually did a gig with that band. There was a big local band thing at the Younger Hall, and we were asked to play, and there was some really sort of locally some quite serious bands there, and then us, and we were just a bunch of kids, and we had a tea chest bass, which is like a double bass made out of an old tea chest and all that, and so that band ended up kind of morphing slowly over a couple of years into a really, really decent rockabilly band. By that point, there was just three of us. There was my mate John Gibbs on double bass, a guy called Keith, I can't remember his surname, Keith Douglas on guitar, and I was on drums. And by that point, we were actually pretty good. We were really good. Keith in particular was a really great rockabilly guitarist. So anyway, but we started getting gigs like in pubs and at little festivals and all that. And it actually got to the point where our mums and dads said they put a stop to it because we were playing 3 or 4 nights a week. and getting paid properly. We were earning, at some points we were earning like £200 a week. And at that time, that was like a fucking king's ransom, man. I didn't have any idea what to do with that amount of money.
Yeah, £200 a week, even at this time, is not bad going.
Yeah. I mean, back then, it was like you could buy the world. It was mental. So anyway, they put a stop to that because it was just, we had obviously had O grades and all that other exam stuff going on, and we were just playing all the time and playing in pubs, and they didn't like that, because we were only 15 or whatever. So anyway, that was the first. I guess in a way that was the first. I mean, we took that really. It depends what you mean by seriously. You take, as you know, Mark, you take every band that you're in really, really seriously. But I guess the next after that band, I left school and started working in William Lowe supermarket, which I don't think exists anymore, and by that point I was a mod, so I was traveling to Edinburgh and Glasgow and a few other places to go to soul nights and R&B nights and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know how there was a mod band in Edinburgh at that time called The Second Generation, and somehow, I don't know how, they heard that I was a really good drummer, and again they were halfway through recording their album in a studio, and they gave me a call and said that their drummer had quit halfway through, and would I go and do it? And I couldn't fucking believe it. I was being asked to play on a real record, a real fucking album. I just couldn't believe it. And I went round, I put the phone down, ran through the kitchen and told my mum, and she goes, don't be stupid. In that classic mum way, you know. So yeah, that was pretty serious because obviously we did an album. I mean, they were crap, you know. The band was crap and the songs were no good, and it was you know, looking back, it was all a bit embarrassing, but it's all part of a greater journey, you know. And we ended up doing 2 tours of Europe. So I was actually like at the age of, by this point, I think I was 17. I was touring Europe in the back of a transit van with these guys, you know, and at that age, you just don't care, you know, you don't care. And it was just, I had the time of my life, man. The time of my life. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
Good stuff. Do you remember any? So from going from drummer to being a set, were you doing backing vocals or anything? Or did you know that?
No, nothing at all like that. I was just hardcore into the drums. That's all I was interested in, you know.
Were you writing lyrics, even like just?
No, nothing like that. No, nothing like that. Because the thing is, I guess, because I'm middle class, right? I'm total middle class. My upbringing was complete middle class, but I always hung around with all the working class kids at school because they always had the best clothes and the best music. They always knew, they were always totally knew what was going on. So that was my crowd. That's who I hung around with. And so by the time I'd left school, I was a total disappointment to my parents because they wanted me to be, I mean, fuck knows what they wanted me to be, like a lawyer or something really big, you know. But I hated school. I was completely unacademic. I was only interested in music and clothes. And so by the time I left school, I was on a YTS scheme working at Willie Lowe's. Basically, they'd sort of washed their hands of me. So, and I'd been made to feel pretty. I knew that they'd given up on me. So I felt like I was stupid. I didn't feel. I felt like I disappointed them, and I felt stupid. I felt like they didn't care about me. By this point, my sister's doing really, really well at school, so all the focus is on her. So, in a way, you kind of, that affects you, obviously, but in another way, it's like, well, nobody gives a shit what I do anymore, so I can do what I want, you know, and it's like no one cares. So, really, but the crowd that I was hanging around with by that point, everyone was into glue, and the football casual thing had kicked in, so there was a lot of fighting and all that. So the idea of writing lyrics and anything connected with bearing your soul or talking about feelings or anything like that, there was just no way. There was just no way that was even, you know, you would have got a kick in straight away if you'd mentioned anything like that. So that was never, and I guess as a drummer as well, it was really kind of, it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't on my radar at all. And then I stopped making music. You know, I became a car mechanic. I was a car mechanic for about 4 years. But during the time when I was a car mechanic, the house music, acid house thing happened. And so I started going through Edinburgh every weekend and going to raves and all that stuff. And that's when I started to bump into guys who'd been at the same school as me in St Andrews, but a year or a couple of years below me. And that was Gordon Anderson and John McLean. And they were both at art college, you know, and Gordon was a working class kid, you know. So when I started, you know, talking to them. Well, they were talking to me about what they were doing, about art and about paintings and about poetry, about, you know, Walt Whitman and Sigmar Polk and Jackson Pollock and a million other people. And I thought, well, these guys are all right. These guys are, you know, it took me a while to get my head around the fact that we could talk about this stuff. It was a strange thing, Mark. You know, I guess it was such a no-no, you know, in the environment that I'd grown up in my social environment anyway, you know. And in my family, were never, I mean, my mum paints, you know, she is a painter. She went to art college in Newcastle in the 60s and all that. But she stopped all that when she got pregnant with me, and never really did it again until much later on. So there was no talk of anything like that at home. My dad was very much, he was working all the time. So the idea of having any sort of artistic or intellectual discussion was never really on the table. So these guys, so John and Gordon really, and there was another guy called Sean McCluskey who I didn't know, but they were at college with. These guys were talking about this stuff and taking me to art exhibitions and lending me books, and it was just like my whole world just went from being this very narrow, like looking through a pinhole camera, to suddenly being like in panoramic view. And that's when, going to an art gallery with a painter or with an artist when you're not an artist is a really different thing, because they can show you what the artist is trying to convey to you. They can say why that's there, why they used this particular medium, whatever it might be, and show you how it connects with other things, and also how it sits within the history of art. And that's really fucking exciting. And you start to think about art. You start to think about just that word, art. And you start to think, well, music's art, and I like music and I make music. Maybe I'm a fucking artist, and that's really exciting.
It took me for a long time to get my head around that I could be an artist, even though I'd been in a band for a while. And also, sort of tying in with what you were saying about lyrics. I mean, when I wrote lyrics, it was for myself. It was just a thing that I did.
But so when did you start doing that then?
So I was doing that at school, but obviously it wasn't like I would show my friends or anything.
Yeah.
I remember one time, one of my friends, Brendan, who actually one of the few people I still talk to from school, he found a bag of lyrics and he was like, "What is this?" And I was terrified. I had to whistle it back off him. And it was a good probably 24 before. Just down to a lot of bereavements and stuff like that. I just went, stop. I just got fearless and just went, what's the worst that can happen, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's that. You know what? That's the thing. What happened to me? I suddenly got fearless, and because what I realized was and it was hanging around with these guys, especially Gordon. What I realized was the guys that I've been hanging around with, who were the local tough guys, the fighting and fucking all that stuff. These guys, they were the weak ones. They were the ones that were scared. The ones that were standing up and making art and saying to the world, "This is how I feel." If that's not brave, I don't know what the fuck is. And and once I realized that, I thought, fuck yeah, this is right. It's actually fucking dangerous and scary to let people know how you're feeling. And there was a real excitement for me about that, And once you realize that you're the strong one, and that fearlessness is a really important thing, because once you get it, it never really leaves you, and it's something that I've always thrived on. I've loved singing my most kind of honest, heart-wrenching songs. I love recording them. I love it when I've written them, and it's affected me when I've written them. I know you must get this as well yourself, because I've listened to a lot of stuff you've done. You know that when you've produced something that is totally pure, there's no filter on it whatsoever. You haven't changed any words to think, well, maybe that's a bit, I'm being too honest there, or I'm letting people in too much. Yeah. I've always thought, I want them to fucking open me up and have a good fucking, root around in there. Yeah. And I've always loved that when you have that moment and it's just you and a bit of paper or a 4-track or a laptop, whatever it is you've recorded on, and it's just that moment where it's you and the piece of and the song, and it's a really special thing to have created that, isn't it?
So what came next? Was it guitar or?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was me and Gordon. What happened? I think I realized that Gordon was writing songs. So and he played me a few of them, and I thought, fucking hell, this guy's really fucking good. So we sort of started our little journey together, where we ended up, we watched a documentary on the making of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and what we realized was that was recorded at the time when that was recorded in '67 or whatever it was. The EMI studio, it only had a 4-track tape machine. So we knew that we could, if we got the money together, we could go and buy a 4-track. It's not obviously not as good quality, but it's still a 4-track machine. And we thought, well, if they've done Sergeant Pepper's on a 4-track, we could do something on a 4-track, you know. So anyway, I think by this, I can't remember at what point. I can't remember if I was on the dole by this point. I just can't remember. But anyway, I managed to get the money together to get a 4-track. So we got this 4-track. He had an effects unit called an Elisa's Quadriverb, and I had my drum kit. And he had a guitar and an electric guitar and a little practice amp. And so we started doing stuff. And then he was really, because of the Beatles thing, you know, we wanted to do some backing vocals. So I was really, really shy about my voice. It was that thing of, it was a bit of a hangover from, you know, my previous kind of life, where you were embarrassed and you thought it was a bit kind of, if not effeminate, but a bit kind of weak to sing, you know, like. So anyway, he really helped me get over that. You know, he really helped me get over that thing. And we used to just sort of do these things where we just shout at each other and scream and just get it all out, you know. And then we'd try and do a vocal. And he really gave me my voice. Really, he really helped me realize that I could sing, you know. So anyway, we started doing that, and then again, he started teaching me sort of bits on the guitar, and I started, you know, trying to learn the guitar myself, and I started experimenting with songwriting and stuff like that at that point, you know. But at that point, you've got to understand that Gordon was like really, really talented really early on, you know, and he'd also heard a lot more music than I had. He was listening. I mean, he'd heard things like Chris Christopherson and Bob Dylan. I mean, I knew who Bob Dylan was, but I used to go through, like, I was into punk, and then I was into, what the hell was into after that? Then I was like a b-boy for a while after that. I was really into electro in like 80, 83, 84. And so when I was listening to those things, that's all I was listening to. So so I knew a lot about music, but within quite narrow spectrums. And things like Chris Christopherson and Bob Dylan, I just thought that was like your dad's music. But he kind of showed me that, again, these things were actually really amazing and really clever. There's a Chris Christopherson song that goes something like, I woke up in the morning and put on my cleanest dirty shirt. I thought that was a fucking genius line, you know, really funny and clever. And you just sort of, so anyway, we started kind of just doing stuff together and singing, and that became a full-time thing for me and him in St Andrews at that point. I'd be round at his house or he'd be round at mine, and we were recording stuff all the time. And after we'd finished recording, we'd just lie on our backs in one of our bedrooms and listen to what we'd done. And that's all we wanted to hear. All we wanted to hear was what we'd done. It was because we were getting what was in us out, you know. And when you're in that mood, that's all you want to hear. You don't want to hear anyone else's music, you know. And I guess for the first time, I was creating something that I was a big part of, and that was really exciting as well. So I learned a lot during that little period, you know.
Right, and so when did the betaband sort of take off?
Yeah, so I had, during that time I'm talking about with Gordon, I had a girlfriend in Glasgow, and she was moving to London to go to nursing college. And by this point, I'd quit being a car mechanic, and I had. I mean, there's a lot more to these stories, but there's no point in going into it. So anyway, at that point, I thought me and Gordon had tried to get a band together in St Andrews. It wasn't fucking happening. Everyone was a lot older than us, and they were all on totally different wavelengths. So I thought, you know, I'm going to go to London with my girlfriend, with Sam, and see what happens, and try and do something. You know, I'd seen all these local bands, and they were all obsessed with being big in St Andrews and big in Fife and all that. And I just thought, that just seemed so nothing to me. I never wanted that. I wanted to be as big. I mean, it sounds like a cliche now because Oasis used to just use that phrase as a broken record, but I really did. Me and Gordon wanted to be. We saw ourselves as the next Lennon and McCartney, and we wanted to be as big as the Beatles. So I thought, forget hanging around in these diddy little towns. Let's go out into go. Let's go to the source.
Side and cover your eye. America is your boyfriend. It doesn't tax the memory of bouncing baby. America is your boyfriend. Do you believe in life? Do you believe in life? This is the lie, this is the smile. America is your boyfriend. The funniest fail, you're all in jail. And America is your boyfriend. We believe in love, but you steal it while you're looking up a heart with little gold, a soul's been sold. Slip up on the love with your little boyfriend. Feed your desire, there's a tower.
So anyway, I went down there. He didn't come first for ages, and then eventually he came down. A lot of craziness happened. By this point, I was suffering from mental problems, to be honest, and he was in a similar way, not good, and it kind of became this sort of whirlpool. Mine and his relationship became kind of unhealthy. We were just two madmen, really.
Was it drinking, drugs, and just or just?
I think before we'd moved down to London, we'd been doing a lot of mushrooms. And also before that, when I was going to the raves in 89, 90, I'd done an awful lot of cheap speed,
Yeah.
and that takes its toll on your fucking mental health, and acid, and also my parents split up when I was 19, which I think was about 1988. No, it was about 1990. And that had actually, even though I was 19 or whatever, it had a big effect on me, a really big effect. And I think I was just a bit of a mess. I was a bit of a mess, to be honest. And so anyway, he went. He had he was a lot worse than me. He was kind of schizophrenic. He was hearing voices and blah blah blah. So he went back to Scotland. So I said to him, look, go back, try and get better. And when I had so much confidence back then, Mark, it was just mental. I knew it was going to happen. I was never going to stop until it happened. So I said, when it happens, I'll call you. Come back down. I'm get on with it. So anyway, to cut a long story short, by 95, 96, me and John and Robin were living together in Shepherd's Bush. John bought a sampler. I had my acoustic guitar. I'd written songs by this point. I'd written "Dry the Rain" and a few other songs, and so John got a sampler. I had my 4-track, and we started putting together. John started putting together beats for my songs, and the first one that we worked on was "Dry the Rain." So, and then we had another track that me and Gordon had done a demo of. So and then me and Robin did a track called Shepherd's Dub, which I don't think really ever came out, but it was a track called Shepherd's Dub. And so we had this little demo thing. And by this point, I was a motorcycle courier in London. So, and I was delivering to all the record labels. So yeah, man. Yeah. So you're going, you're delivering on a daily basis to like EMI, to Virgin Records, to Chrysalis, to Polydor, to Food Records up in Camden, and also to Heavenly. They were in Wardour Street at that time. And it was so exciting to go to these fucking places and just see, it was they were like fortresses, it was like impregnable fortresses that you weren't allowed in, you couldn't get in. But I was a courier, so you'd go in with a package for blah blah blah, and they'd say I'd take it up to, floor 4 or whatever it was. So you got to go in the lift, see all these gold records all over the wall, up in the lift, see people that work there. You might see a fucking pop star or whatever it was, and it was just. And by this point, I'd started carrying around, so we'd made a demo tape, basically a 3-track demo tape. I'd started carrying these tapes around in my bag, but I wasn't really sure what to do with them, how to get them to people. So anyway, it turned out that what I ended up doing was I started fake delivering demo tapes. So I'd go out and buy a jiffy bag, and I'd put a tape in it, and I knew some of the names of the people at these labels now. So I'd write the name on it, and then I'd go and deliver them, like as if it was a real delivery, but it wasn't. It was just me turning up, fucking handing out demo tapes. So I did that at Food, I did that at Heavenly, and I think I did it at Polydor as well. I subsequently found out that Heavenly threw it in the bin because so I put the address of where we were living on, 98 Devonport Road, Shepherd's Bush, but I spelled Shepherd's wrong. So they right. So they threw it in the bin, and they told me that because they came to like some really early betaband gigs, wanting to sign us, and I said, I sent you a demo tape. They said, I threw it in the bin and they were so apologetic, they couldn't believe they'd done it. Like I think the guy got fired that had fucking chucked it in the bin, So anyway, me and John were DJing. John McLean was still at Art College at this point, and we would DJ there every Thursday night, me and him, doing like jungle and dub sets, dub reggae and jungle. So we had these 2 girls that we knew, and her mate turned up, this guy called Phil, and he was a band manager. So I got talking to him, and he said, I'm going into Parlophone tomorrow to see this A&R guy about a band. I said, fucking, I had tapes on me, obviously. So I said to him, fucking take this in, play it to him. Because I realized that if you could, because I never heard anything about these tapes that I'd sent in. But what I realized was you had to get somebody in for a meeting. You had to go for a meeting with these people. You had to sit there and listen to it with them. That's what you had to do. You couldn't just send a tape in because they don't really, they've got so much stuff they don't listen to it. So anyway, this guy went in, he played the demo, and we got called in for a meeting. And the weird thing is, to Parlophone Records, right? Which was, and because me and Gordon were so obsessed with the Beatles, like we got called into the label that the Beatles were on. I couldn't fucking believe it. But at the same time, as I say, I was so confident. I knew it was going to happen. So that's when the shit really hit the fan. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lyric that I remember you doing in the later stuff was the betaband rap.
Yeah.
And it's drinking champagne at EMI, the irony almost made us cry.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I knew that we were doing a deal. I knew that we were doing the deal, the deal with the capitalist deal, and I nearly didn't sign that deal. But by that point, we had a little manager guy. By the time it got round to us signing the deal, so by this point, we'd put out Champion Versions EP, and after we did that, and it was like it was all kicking off for us. They wanted to sign us for a 4 or 5 album deal. So we had a little manager at that point, and we were in a pub opposite EMI, waiting to go in and sign this deal. And I nearly didn't go in and do it. I was really torn about whether to do it or not. And I had a mobile phone by this point, and I got a call from the job centre, and the job centre said, "You had a job interview today at Burger King in Leicester Square, and you haven't turned up, so we're cancelling your dole." And I thought, man, I've got to fucking do this. This is just a joke. Get in, get the fucking money off them, and make some amazing art, Yeah. And really, that's what we did. We signed for like 150 grand on the record side, and we also signed to EMI Publishing, which was another 150 grand. And so we put ourselves on a wage, And we never wasted not one penny of that money. Everything went into the band and into the art. None of us bought houses, which is why when the band finished, we had 1 month's money left in the bank, and that was it. I basically, the only thing I left the betaband with was the equipment that I bought when I was in the band, which was a couple of acoustic guitars, an electric guitar, a drum kit, and an amplifier, and a month's rent and a month's wages. That's what I left the band with, And we'd signed for like 300 grand, And I'm proud of that, Mark. I'm proud of that. I mean, obviously, at times, now I've got a family and all that, and there's times when there's some of the decisions we made in the band, or I made in the band, to do with using our music for adverts and stuff like that. I couldn't make those decisions now, but at the time, it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. I saw the betaband as a punk band. I saw us as the Sex Pistols, except we were really doing it. It wasn't. The Sex Pistols. They took fucking some money off a couple of record labels. They made one album and then they fucking exploded.
Yeah,
I actually wanted to take, and they didn't see any of that money. They didn't see any of that money. They didn't get a chance to turn any of that money really into anything. But I wanted to take that money. I wanted to take these fucking capitalist pigs that have been screwing artists over by that point for like 50 years or whatever it was. I wanted to take that money and turn it into some art. I didn't want a fucking sports car. I didn't want a house. I didn't want a coke habit. I didn't want any of that shit. I didn't even want to be a rock star. I really didn't. I don't care about being famous. That's the fucking mugs. What I wanted to do was be an artist, and we had the money to do it, and that was the most amazing thing about the band.
Yeah, so I think taking the money for certain adverts. There's certain bands that by doing it, it can actually just ruin the entire career. So even though it seems like an easy money, there's certain things that you can't do. The first one that kind of springs to mind is like when Hurricane Number One did the Sun advert one, and for a band that's got indie credentials, there's certain things that's a no-no. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was talking to, it was the first time I was actually supposed to interview. I interviewed Jake from Alabama 3.
Right.
R.I.P. obviously to Jake, but he was he got a lucky one with the Sopranos, because that's not selling out. That's just really cool. You're being part of art. But if you've done, I think nowadays everyone agrees that doing the odd advert and stuff is just part of the deal, because
it's changed so much.
But there's certain things. I think there's got to be certain lines. Like you can't really be cruel to a McDonald's advert, or things.
Well, do you know what I realised, Mark? And I'm sure you've come to this conclusion yourself. What I realised is selling out is not something you do in public. It's something you do in your head. We all know our little boundaries, the things that we have always told ourselves that we won't do.
Yeah.
And it's when you do those things, and it could be anything. It could be anything. It couldn't be something as dramatic as doing a McDonald's advert. It could be something much smaller than that. And yourself when you've sold yourself out. And as I say, I came to the conclusion that it really is something you do internally. You make that decision, and what happens after that potentially is the more public thing, depending on what it is.
Well,
but
there's a good example of what I think you did. Well, I don't know how much you're saying it, but doing the high fidelity thing, which I imagine would have been quite a big life changing thing, because everybody seems to know that part of the film. Was that your decision, or was that?
Yeah. I mean, part of the reason we ended up getting dropped from EMI Publishing because we refused to do almost everything.
Yeah, it's ideal for the publisher who's trying to.
Yeah, well, exactly. There was a couple of really big things in particular. There was an Oldsmobile car advert in America where they wanted to pay us $1 million, and then it would be another $500,000 if it went up into Canada, which was quite likely if they decided to use the same advert in Canada. So it'd be about $1.5 million. And by that point, we had an American manager. And he said this to me. He was so excited when he called me and told me. He was saying he was going to change my life. And I said, no. I don't want to do it. It's not happening. And he couldn't believe it. I mean, the Americans have always had a very different relationship with money and a relationship with art and commerce, I think, than the British have.
Yeah.
You know,
I think we're slowly going that way more. We're getting more Americanized for things like that. But
definitely.
Yeah, but I think you're talking about, 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. You could definitely see a massive difference in.
Yeah, it was still regarded as selling out then, but now, as you say, it's just part of the landscape. It's not seen as anything now. I mean, I remember seeing, a Django did an advert, a BT advert, and they've done a few things like that, and I guess, I've always seen them as like the betaband little brothers, and they really sort of, they obviously, we were a big inspiration to them, and I suppose it kind of broke my heart a little bit that they didn't take the not selling out part. But yeah. I guess for them, it wasn't selling out. It wasn't selling out, and they're so much more successful than we ever were. I mean, they're a real serious band. They play all over the world, and they're very successful. And we were just this little blip. We were like the last great, exciting thing that managed to get almost into the mainstream.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands at that time. I mean, is there any other bands you can think of that were around about the same era as you that were maybe just didn't make it, or?
Well, the Super Freight Animals, but I guess they were bigger than us again, and certainly, I mean, they never finished really. I mean, they still do bits and bobs now, but I mean,
I think it's actually funny you mention them. I think that they were Super Freight Animals and Betaband were two of my favourites growing up, because what it seemed to show to me, and it's as an example I've shown to other band members that I've had in the past that are maybe taking themselves a little bit too seriously, is they can still make serious music and serious songs, but you can also have a bit of fun with it, and maybe not take yourself too seriously, even though you're taking your music seriously.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's really important. I mean, I think to be self-effacing, I mean, I always had a lot of confidence. I always felt what I was doing was better than fucking anyone else. But I was sick to the back teeth of hearing Oasis and the Verve sitting in interviews talking about how they were the new Beatles and talking about how they were, the kings of the fucking universe. And I thought, you're not. You're just another fucking white boy with a fucking guitar regurgitating what's been done a million times before. I mean, the Verve were like head and shoulders above Oasis, but Oasis for me was like, have you ever seen that film Human Centipede?
Yes.
Well, for me, Oasis were the Human Centipede.
Watching it.
What's that?
I started watching it, but
But you get the it was grim, man. But you get the idea. And for me, Oasis were the bit where the centipede was joined up into a circle, and it's basically just regurgitating itself. That was when art in music for me, in mainstream music for me, stopped. I think them and Coldplay, they happened about the same time, roughly. That's when it kind of stopped. And for me, we were just a massive reaction to that. It was at that point, journalists, I think that's why journalists didn't like interviewing us, because we were difficult, but we wanted to be interviewed. We took what we did very seriously,
True or false, did you tell the NME that your album was shit and no one should buy it?
Well, you don't have to ask me that. You just Google it, man. It was on the front cover of the NME.
Yeah, but I know the journalists sometimes don't tell the truth. So
no, that was very true. Yeah, that was a kind of perfect storm, really. That was a really difficult time, right? That was a really difficult time. I was suffering madly by that point. I was suffering from depression, agoraphobia. I was virtually a basket case. It was a fucking nightmare. And it was a nightmare for the other three guys in the band. And what we needed at that point was strong management, really strong management. And one of the big problems the Betaband had, and one of the reasons why we probably finished, was because we never had good management. We never had anyone strong holding it together and looking after us as people, especially me. Yeah. And that was a big problem for us.
It seems to be a massive problem in the music industry in general.
Yeah.
It's happening over and over again.
Yeah. definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean,
I
you're
managed,
just sort of thrown to the lines because there's so many. I mean, I don't know if it's as true now. I mean, back in the 90s when we got signed, the industry was full of nut jobs. Everybody was a nut job. Everybody was suffering from some sort of madness, whether it was a coke habit or alcohol or crack or fucking heroin or just a general day-to-day mad person. It was like a refuge for that, all the nutters. If you couldn't get a job anywhere else, you ended up in the music industry, and it's not really like that now. So people like me, we didn't really stand out, because there was a lot of people like that, and so it's difficult, but you do. People need help, I mean, everybody needs help. I mean, when I was a car mechanic, I needed fucking mental help, But
I suppose that's the thing is when you've got things like depression and agoraphobia, things like that, and most people can usually either take some time off work or just go into themselves a bit and have that space. But if you're having to go out on stage to thousands of people and you can't stop the machine, there's not really, you can't just say, you can't really just pause it, can you?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I've still never cancelled a gig ever. Never once just went, no, I've just got to do it. So I think if I cancel, I think I've had jobs in call centres many, many years ago. And if I started a job that I was quite enjoying, if I took that one sickie, I would end up, my attendance would go down because I would quite enjoyed the sickie. More than working, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've always had a very, very strong work ethic. You see a lot of bands now. My wife now, when we met, she was friends with a lot of bands in London and a lot of younger bands, and some of them got signed. And what happened when they got signed was they'd almost immediately all get fucking drug habits and become alcoholics because they thought that when you get signed, that's when you become a rock star. And it's like, mate, that's when the fucking hard work begins, Someone's taken enough interest in you to give you some money so you can do your art for a living, and you just had to get a fucking heroin habit.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky like that. I've always had a really strong work ethic, and I'm so glad, I'm so glad because it could have. I mean, if I hadn't have had a strong work ethic, God knows what I'd be now. I'd be a fucking bin man.
Yeah, well, I mean, because after betaband, you were doing King Biscuit time. I remember seeing you. I think that's the first time I met you properly. You were at King Tut's doing that.
Yeah.
And then you were doing the Black Affair stuff as well.
Yeah.
And then, what made you go back to just using your own name?
I think, I mean, the King Biscuit time thing got really fucked up because basically just before the album actually came out, I mean, what had happened to me was the betaband finished, and then I split up with my girlfriend, and my relationship with her had sort of run concurrently with the betaband, so it was about 8 years. So suddenly, my girlfriend of 8 years and the band I'd been in for 8 years was finished.
Yeah.
So that was really, really difficult to deal with because suddenly I had nothing in my life, and everything that I'd kind of everything I'd made up my life was gone. So it was really, really hard. I basically had a massive mental breakdown at that point. I was totally suicidal, and I'd been suicidal before, but I always knew that it was more of a cry for help than a kind of serious. I'm just got to close the blind, Mark. 1 second.
Don't worry.
So I'd always felt that it was more of I was trying to get someone to help me. I was crying out for help rather than an actual serious suicide attempt. But this time around, it was different. I knew I'd had enough. I just had enough. I'd had enough. I didn't want to deal with myself anymore. I wanted a permanent holiday from my life. So anyway, I was really, really lucky. And to cut a long story short, I got some really good help and started putting everything back together again. But the Black Affair thing happened. But I felt that the King Biscuit Time thing was too similar to the betaband, and I guess I had it was a personal thing to me that I wanted to prove to myself that I could exist as a songwriter, as a musician outside of that band, that people didn't think that they were propping me up,
Yeah.
So I did the Black Affair thing, which really spectacularly fucking failed. Really, nobody was really that interested in it. I mean, there was a few problems. There was a few problems with it. The album should have come out a year before, but you can say all this crap. It's all bullshit, really. It just didn't connect with anyone, really. So, I'd been making and I was sort of set to make a second Black Affair album, and Richard X, producer called Richard X, who does a lot of sort of electro pop music, he was wanting to produce it. So that it could have been great, but then I just got fucking bored of working with MPCs and drum machines and synths and all. I just got bored, so I picked up the guitar one day and wrote "Boys Outside" in a Wanna, the song, and I thought, God, that was great, and I just sort of started to love the guitar again. I started to love the acoustic guitar, the fact that you can just sit there, a human being and a guitar, and you can break people's hearts. There's something really exciting about that,
Yeah, it's a lot more cathartic.
Yeah. And dangerous in a way, because it's just you. I mean, I've done acoustic gigs when I was supporting Guy Garvey. I was playing in front of 2,500 people with just an acoustic guitar, and it's, the pressure's massive, but it's so exciting,
So I was actually listening to, you did was it Ghost Outside? It was like a dub remake. Have you ever thought about doing anything like that again?
I'd love to, but I'd love to do one with Adrian Sherwood, actually. But it's difficult to get them. It's difficult to keep going back to Domino asking for money, because it's, times are, as you know, times are tough in the music industry, and you've got to think. It's difficult. It's such a shame. That's one of the great shames about the way that the music industry is at the moment, with the lack of money, is that you can't do things like that. Because there's so many great unknown records out there, records that weren't big hits, but records that are still really fucking important, and it's important that they were made. And that's one of the great pities of the fact that there's not much money. But I mean, I guess you have.
I've got a few questions came in from people earlier on today.
Yeah.
Che Woodwin, actually, just because it sort of fits to that, he says, how do you feel about the Black Affair album now? 12 years on, is it hugely different from anything he'd done before or since? So how do you see it? Or have you listened to it recently? Or
I listened to Japanese Happening the other day, which is a track off it, and I thought it sounded great. It needs an edit, but it could have been a fucking. Well, it is with a bit of an edit. I think it's a brilliant, 3.5 minute synth pop song. That's a great track, actually. Japanese Happening.
Do you feel like when you listen back to something after a certain period of time, it's quite easy to be honest, humble, or critical of something because it actually feels like a different person created it?
I've always been. I mean, going back to the NME headline, our album's rubbish. I've always been pretty good at being critical of my own stuff. I think you know when something's good.
I don't think it was a rubbish album though.
But it wasn't what it could have been.
Yeah,
it was nowhere what it could have been. And the dreams I had for that album, what we ended up producing was never gonna meet those ideals that I had for that record. But for many reasons, some of which were out with my control, because I was so deep in it. I was so deep focused in the band, and don't forget, I was the main songwriter. I mean, the thing about the betaband was it was supposed to be me and Gordon, and he was a fucking genius songwriter. And so when the band actually got signed, he came back for about 4 weeks, but he was so unwell, he couldn't do it. So when the betaband, when we got going, my best friend, my songwriter, my brother was in the mental hospital. So you're having to deal with that, and not just that, but your songwriting part. The guy that was the genius in the band had gone, and suddenly it's all on me. I was the only songwriter in the band, and by that point, I'd only written about 4 fucking songs.
Yeah,
and I just signed for £300,000.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of pressure, man. A lot of pressure. Yeah, it was difficult, very difficult.
And so, now moving on to your new album, I think you said roughly to me before when we were down in Brighton that you think that you've got every 2 years is kind of like a good amount of time for you to write a new album. And and I think that now you've encompassed a new sort of band sound to it. So how's that feeling now?
Well, it's difficult. It's difficult because for me, I think it's the best record I've ever made. I think it's an amazing record. But it didn't do what I expected it to do and what a few people expected it to do. So it's difficult because the lack of success makes you fall out of love with it. But the fact is, me and my wife and daughter, my daughter's only 2, we were up in the Lake District last week and driving there and driving back. One of the if my daughter's kicking off in the back, because it's a long way, man. It gets boring for a kid. So if she starts kicking off, my wife puts on my album About the Light, and it just calms her down, and she loves listening to it. So I had to listen to that album about 3 or 4 times on the way to and from the Lake District, and I just thought, God, this is a really fucking good record. I'm gutted that it didn't do what I wanted. But the thing is, when you've had, I've been doing this now, Mark, for nearly, I don't know, about 25 years or whatever it is. I've had quite a long career, and things change. Things change, and there's the sort of the zeitgeist now is against people like me. It's against kind of men with guitars. So things change. Festival lineups. They want those to be 50-50 split, regardless of, I guess, how good somebody is. If they've got their quota of men, then you don't get on, and they want to fill up the female slots. And
that's something that we talked about quite controversially in a previous podcast.
Yeah,
and obviously, as a promoter as well, I put on a lot of gigs, and I just seen that. I like the idea behind it, but the idea that I mean, I always do my best to make sure that there is as many females as possible in it. But it's quite, you've just got to be very careful what you say about it without it making you sound like a mad right-wing misogynist. But
no, absolutely.
I don't really want anyone getting in the way of me picking the best running order if I'm running a stage at a festival. I want to pick the best one, and I don't really take the criticism too well, because it's like I've got a very limited budget, and I just get the best thing. And I think by having a legal agreement where it's only 50-50, then you're going to have situations where female bands that are okay are taken. It just seems to be the wrong way about it, and I think that the way around it is focus on the education, because I've spoke to people who work in education and music, and apparently something changes in secondary, because beforehand females are really interested in, little girls are interested in keyboards, synths, all these kind of things. And it just, for some reason, secondary, I think there's a lot of society problems in there rather than the music industry itself.
Yeah. I think if a female artist or a female band are not getting on the bill because they're female, then that is completely wrong.
Yeah.
Completely wrong. I mean, I've never got on the promotion side of it. I've never been a part of that, so I don't know if that happens. But yeah, so that, and then, radio stations are kind of, I guess guitar music's kind of seems to be a bit out of fashion at the moment. And I've never really thought of myself as a kind of guitar kind of guy, because I suppose when I think about that, I think of like dad rock, and that just makes your skin crawl, because I guess for me the word dad rock and that kind of bloke with a guitar cliche, for me it's always come with certain connotations where it's this kind of white, slightly right-wing guy who is sexist, who is kind of you're sort of just that whole cliche, like it's lager louts and all that sort of crap, and that really isn't me. That's everything I've fought against fucking my whole life, and so it's interesting times, but I just think everyone should be on their own merit, and there shouldn't be any form of exclusion at all. But it's like you say, I think the problem with that conversation is it's become, even just having the conversation has become very problematic, because there are a very aggressive, there's certain people out there that are very aggressive, and their favorite thing is to jump on someone and paint them, as a misogynist, which is, I don't think is helpful at all. And sometimes it worries me, because I remember the sort of lad culture of the 90s, Loaded magazine and all that stuff, which me and my mates all fucking hated. It was just everything that we were against, and it worries me a little bit that this whole thing might end up kicking off something even worse than that. If these fucking bozos that are out there anyway decide to, I mean how the right wing in this country, they always paint themselves as this kind of marginalized group that are being attacked all the time, and they're just fighting, the English Defence League, they're fighting for their sort of right just to be English and all this crap. And it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit, So I would hate for that to happen at some point as well, because the last thing we need is a return to that. I just want pure freedom and pure equality on every level for every living human,
Yeah.
And who doesn't want that, really?
Yeah. Well, I think everybody's just, with social media, everyone's tied into their own little algorithm bubbles now.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you like one thing, Facebook is going to keep feeding you that.
Yeah.
That same thing, and that's why people are just having these sort of, they're in their own wee extreme bubbles.
Yeah.
And when someone says something outside of it, it's quite shocking to the other person, and they'll get a load of that. And then also, and there's also just trolls just making false statements and saying that this is what people are saying, and they're not saying that at all.
Yeah.
So there's so much fake news and stuff, but it's definitely interesting times we're in. I mean, would you say that the new album? I mean, obviously you had Monkey Minds and the Devil Times. That was very political.
Yeah.
And the album, I can still hear the subtleties of political discourse throughout it, but it's not as obviously as extreme as previous things. Was that a conscious effort, or were you just trying to find some hope? And obviously now that you've fatherhood as well. I mean, how's fatherhood? Has that changed the way that you write and approach this kind of thing?
I think Monkey Minds and the Devil's Time for me was, I kind of drew a line under a lot of my feelings and emotions about politics and about capitalism and all the things that divide us and hold us back. I wanted to set out my stall once and for all. It's all there. Everything I feel is all there. But I think what I decided was it can really affect you, all that stuff, on a daily basis, because if you're constantly thinking about these things, these big subjects, you feel so powerless and so helpless.
Yeah.
And to feel like that all the time is really exhausting.
Yeah.
So I decided once and for all to set out my stall and get it all off my chest once and for all. And the way I live my life now, and the way I live my life, from that point, was I'm going to treat everyone that I meet in my life and treat them how I want to be treated, which is with compassion and love, and treat everyone the same. And if I find that if you do that, in the majority of your life is all right, because you're actually creating your own little world, your own little universe.
Yeah.
And it might sound selfish, and it might sound like giving up in a way, but I think fear is the enemy. Fear is the greatest enemy, and we're just pumped full of fear all the fucking time. Whether it's immunizations, or Brexit, or the environment, or whatever it might be, it's just a fear factory, and when you're afraid, you don't make sensible decisions ever.
Yeah.
When you're afraid and you're suffering from anxiety and all these things, you don't make reasoned judgments at all. And so I don't really watch the news anymore, Mark. I don't. If I want to know something that's happening, I'll just go on Twitter and have a look. And just take everything with a pinch of salt. But in the main, I just stay away from it. And the fact is that having my daughter has really allowed me to do that, because obviously, she needs to be looked after all the time. So, you're kind of, you have a great excuse as to why you don't know what the fuck's going on. But
well, I kind of did similar with the first Jackal Trades album, because at the time I was doing a lot of spoken word satire on politics, and I was right in there, up to date with everything. And for that album, Need the Characters was just basically an amalgamation of all of that stuff. And then when I made the last Jackal Trades album, which was rushed, I mean, I did end up having to do it all in about 2 weeks. And I just I told a kind of psychedelic story of a boy from a scheme, and it was a different thing. But I just wanted to just move away from politics for a change. And then when I'm looking at the new Jackal Trades album, I'm going to get a wee bit more of it in, but I'm going to keep it a bit more fun and upbeat as well.
Yeah.
You're totally bang on what you're saying. If you're just going to let this stuff worry about you all day, every day, it's not going to make you a happy person. And if you're not a happy person, you're not going to be able to be there for your friends as much. And
also, how are you supposed to change the world if you're just fucking miserable all the time? It's not going to work like that. I just think, as I say, a lot of this is on Monkey Minds. The thing about, small changes, small conversations. These are the things that are small interactions on a daily basis. Where you smile at the person that serves you in the shop, smile and say good morning to somebody when they walk past you. I'm telling you, little things like that, they have way more effect than 3 weeks of, worrying about Brexit and posting on Facebook or Twitter about Brexit and about what a cunt Boris Johnson is.
Yeah.
That is absolutely pointless. Absolutely pointless. I mean, it might make you feel better for 2 or 3 minutes, but you're just playing into their hands because you're giving them what they want. You're afraid. They want you to be afraid. And you are afraid, you become afraid. But if you'd say, fuck that, I'm not engaging in your world. I'm going to wash my hands of that. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to make somebody smile. And it might sound pathetic. It might sound weak. It might sound like a joke, but it's that is real. That's real.
Yeah, absolutely. And so also in the context of we're talking about social media and stuff like that, I'm quite interested to how you have had a long career. So how do you make the streaming culture? Is it any better or any different than people downloading it for free, or is there anything good about it? Or
I mean, the thing is, I think I mean, from when I was a kid at school, youth culture was everything. You were identified by what you were, whether you were a mod or a skinhead or a punk or casual or whatever it was you were. And I loved that. I loved the fact there was these different tribes and they were all into different things. And music was just as much as clothes. Music was really important. It was everything, There was every single group, every single subculture, every single youth culture had a music that it followed. And if you fast forward then to now, and with kids that are the age I was at then, which is I guess between sort of 10 and 20 or whatever, music is just not as important as it was to us as it is to them. It's something that they consume, while they're doing something else, or it's just one other part of their consumption of culture. And it's difficult. It's very difficult for me to really say whether that's good or bad. I don't know. I think it's sad. I think it's sad that music's not as important. And they all look very similar, the kids these days. There's very little. The only group that really stands out is the goths. And you don't really see many of them anymore either. But there seems to be not. I mean, I don't know. I'm fucking. I'm 48 now, Mark. I don't know what the fuck those kids are up to. I really don't. But talking to friends of mine who've got kids who are sort of, 16 to 20 or whatever, I know that they just kind of consume music in a really, really different way to what we did. For us, it was live or die. For them, they might be into a track for a week and then it's gone and then they're on to the next thing.
It's quite hard to give any band the time. I think it's just a busier world as well.
Yeah.
We are constantly you're constantly, and there's good and bad. It's a double-edged sword where you can keep in contact with everyone. But as a result, it's to give an album the chance that you would, when you're spending £15 on a CD or whatever, which is my culture growing up, you would take a risk on a couple of bands that you maybe heard a song or you maybe read about, and then you would have to give them that album your full attention.
Yeah.
Find out whether you've made an error of judgment or not. And there's a few from the Britpop we've seen that lasted the test of time like I thought they had. And then there's other bands which weren't my favourites at the time that I think have lasted really well, like Supergrass and Placebo.
Yeah.
We were listening to the other day because we were actually just playing some tunes from the 90s, and I think that their music's lasted quite well. And at the time they were right up the top of my list, although Supergrass was the first band I've ever seen live.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so I think when streaming culture, it's like, even I see myself doing it where I'm like I don't really use Spotify. I didn't put any of my music on Spotify until very recently, about less than a year ago. I was so against Spotify, but that's where people are now. So I had So that was felt like a bit of a small selling out moment for me. But at the end of the day, that's.
But the thing is, Mark. The thing is, the only reason human beings are on the planet is because we adapt. If you don't adapt, you fucking die.
Who on earth did you think you are? 15 years in a prison shut, and I tried to let you down, never tried to turn it around. And those were the days that no one misses. No postcard sent, signed or sealed with kisses. And this is the man who saved your life. He fed, he clothed, he even gave you a wife. Noise outside, boys outside, noise outside. Noise outside, boys outside, noise outside. Now count the stress on just one finger.
And it's that thing of, I remember having a conversation with Kenny Anderson quite a long time ago now, and he was really, really fucking angry about streaming and about Spotify and all these. He was so fucking angry about it. He was desperate for people to keep buying CDs and albums, and I just couldn't take it seriously because, I mean, you know, what are you going to do? Just release your stuff on C90 tape?
Yeah.
Just to make a point. Because no one's going to fucking hear it. Yeah. And ultimately, you want people to hear what you do. You want people to hear art, you know. And yeah, the medium is a pile of crap. It really is a pile of crap. The sound quality is a pile of crap. The whole method about getting it is a pile of crap. The transientness of it, like you were saying, you know, the fact that you don't.
The one thing that kind of made me change my mind on it was that we were travelling to gigs a lot, and Joe had it on. She had the premium version, which didn't have adverts, and that's the first time I'd heard that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is quite cool because the algorithm was suggesting some good tunes, either that I would already like or things that I would like, which is quite it is quite good that way. But the problem, what I do find transient about it is the fact that you hear something good and you go, what is that? And you quickly have a quick glance at the name of the band and you go, I'll try and remember that.
Yeah.
But don't, because it's gone and the next song's on. your attention's gone and you're checking your notifications, and so it's really hard for a band to you know, I think a couple of bands that have been quite good to get through it all has been Sleaford Mods. We went to see the film with you down in Brighton, and also Idols. I seen them at Bristol a couple of weeks ago, and that was their homecoming gig, and it felt like they had a really good message throughout. They started every song with saying, "This is an anti-fascist song."
Yeah.
Single song. And you know, it was one of the ones that got funny, then it got a bit played out, and then by the end it was funny, and it was like a call to arms. And I quite liked the idea behind that, because with right-wing propaganda, they just repeat the same lie over and over again.
Yeah.
But it made it very clear, they set their stall out. You can't be a fascist and like this music. I'm afraid it's not for you.
Yeah. I think that's. I really like Idols. I think they're great. Yeah, really good. Yeah, and Sleaford Mods. Just. I mean, thank fucking God. You know. I mean, imagine. You know. Imagine that they didn't exist. You know, that just. Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's also they obviously put the work in as well. I mean, there's loads of good bands that I could mention, but the reality is that they've not really got the work ethic. You know, and I'll include my own work in my own band in that. Is I've got the work ethic, but it's hard to find band members who are like, right, let's go in this. You know, let's do this tour. because the fees aren't as good, and they're just like, well, we might not, it's like, I would just want to do the tour and actually put it in. But, that's just me. I'm not.
I know it's difficult. It's really difficult because I think that, like, when I was starting out, there was still that dream of getting signed, and so you might get signed, but now it's like, well, you're probably not going to get signed. And if you do get signed, they're not going to give you enough money to live on for a couple of years, So it's hard. I think that's we've reached a situation now with music where most of the people making it these days that are successful are the sons and daughters of the establishment.
Yeah.
They've been at university, they've been to, some stage school or whatever it might be, and they can afford to do it for a bit, but if the music you make is not putting food on your table, it's not paying your rent or whatever, if you don't have to, it puts a really different complexion on it. There's that hunger. There's no hunger there, really. There's no do or die mentality. And also, where's the criticism of the establishment? Where does that come from if it's not coming from music? I mean, I remember Top of the Pops. When I was a kid, there was all sorts of stuff in there. You'd have fucking, Clive Dunn, and then you'd have the Buzzcocks, and and then all sorts of crap. But there seemed to be room for everything. There seemed to be room for everything, and now it just feels like one, like you were saying, it feels like one algorithm. And I think music's in trouble. I really do think music is in trouble because the Sleaford Mods, they stand out so much, don't they? They really stand out as being one of the very, very few bands that are actually attempting to put a spotlight and a magnifying glass on what's happening,
Yeah, I think the grime and the hip hop scene's doing their bit as well, but
okay, yeah. Well, you might. You're probably right. I'm totally out of touch with that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, because they're trapped in their algorithm, and it's very unlikely that they're going to reach and change any minds out with their bubble.
Yeah.
When you talk about criticism, man, that's a question I like to ask everyone as well. Is when you get a bad review or you get criticised, how do you deal with that?
It depends really who's done it. I'm quite lucky. I don't really get that many bad reviews. I am pretty lucky like that. But it depends who's done it really. If it's some little, prick on a blog, that him and his mates treat, well, I don't really give a fuck, But it does. I don't know. I'm a very sensitive person, so these things, they do kind of affect you. I get affected by things. Going back to the kind of misogynistic thing. Recently, I had a thing on Twitter. Actually, it wasn't that recently. Now it was probably about a year ago. But where my daughter had been awake for like 2 or 3 nights in a row, and I was totally exhausted, not had any sleep at all. And I walked past the television, and Sophie Ellis-Bextor, the sort of pop star, was on the TV talking about Larry Levan. Now, I'm a big fan of Larry Levan. But for some reason, it really just got my goat that there was this pop star with a songwriting team and a team of producers trying to, make people think of Larry Levan as if there was some sort of connection between what that pop star's doing and what Larry Levan did, which was truly groundbreaking. And it really got my goat. I don't know why. It's just one of those things where you just snap because you're knackered. But you should never take to Twitter when you're fucking tired, man. So anyway, I posted listening to Sophie Ellis-Bextor. It was, don't get me wrong, this tweet is just, I should never have done it. It's moronic and it's really bitter and it's banal, but I did it. So I tweeted that listening to Sophie Ellis-Bextor talk about disco is like listening to John Major talk about post-punk. And so I got completely fucking jumped on by a couple of people, as being this misogynistic pig, and it went massive, I mean, because the thing is, I tweeted and then I basically put my phone down. I didn't check my phone again until about 2 a.m, and it had all kicked off during the day. And it was like, so I walked in the house with a hangover and it was all kicking off. I was like, oh my fucking God, what am I going to do now? I ended up like...
Did you just delete it or apologise?
No, I can't remember if I don't think I deleted it, but I ended up issuing an apology, which I wouldn't have done if it was up to me. But my manager kind of said, "Look, you really need to just nip this in the bud because." Yeah. But it was, but that really affected me. The fact that all these people on Twitter are calling you this name, which is something, as I said before, and it's something that I've always kind of fought against, and something that I hate in other men. Fucking violently hate that crap in other men. And the fact is, it wasn't a misogynistic tweet, and it wasn't sexist. It was just a moronic, fucking banal tweet that should never happened. But you do. So obviously, you are sensitive about these things, and but really,
the problem is as well is that when you actually, if anyone does apologise, it's never enough anyway. Really, for some people, it's like the pitchforks are out by that point, and so even if someone does make, I've seen loads of people making real, genuine apologies, and it's just like it's never good enough.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
because they've made up their mind that this is the enemy.
Yeah, because there's teams of people out there waiting to jump on someone and try and in inverted commas delete them. They seem to. Twitter is a vicious fucking place to play nowadays, man.
Yeah,
and by me saying that, I'm not saying that in any way that sexist or misogynistic tweets should be allowed, because they shouldn't. But
it's funny that you've actually got to clarify that, though.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you do.
So it's like just in case anyone's listening back and they're saying, "Oh, you're saying misogyny is fine" in Twitter.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, no, I know. It's the world. That whole world. I mean, Twitter now is just a battleground. It really is just a battleground. It's not. It was fun for a long time. It was like an adult's playground, But now it just seems to be a lot of incredibly angry people that are desperate to be offended.
You kind of left Facebook to go to Twitter to get away from it, didn't you? I see you sort of more a Twitter guy than a Facebook guy. So
now I do Instagram, to be honest. Now most of what I post on Twitter is just promotion stuff. Yeah. But Instagram's great because it feels more artistic. Instagram. Twitter, I guess, is a conversation, and these days it's just a nasty conversation.
Yeah.
But Instagram feels more artistic, and I get a lot more out of Instagram. I really enjoy Instagram a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's when you're scrolling through it. Obviously, it's got its negative side, but it feels like everybody's boasting about how great their lives are. But if you're following the right people, then you can see some good stuff. And it's just a nice bit of brain pizza for yourself to just sort of, rather than going to Facebook, you're going to or Twitter, you're guaranteed there's going to be a political thing kicking off.
Yeah.
And just strangers arguing with each other that are never going to agree with each other. And I really do worry about people that they're wasting their time and their energies on arguing with strangers on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. But it goes entirely back to what I'm saying, like about turning off the news, turning off social media, go outside the house and have a conversation with someone.
Yeah,
these are the things that actually change things. Shouting into an echo chamber is never going to change anything. Having your own views repeated back to you, and then arguing with strangers, because the thing is, it's not. The reason why Twitter, I think, has become such a nasty place to be is because people immediately go straight up to, like, DEFCON 1. They go straight. Somebody makes a comment, and then immediately it's like, well, fuck your mother. I hope you get AIDS. You're a fucking bellend, and if I see you on the street, I'm gonna fucking chib you. What happened to a bit of debate?
Yeah.
What happened to just a bit of. And it used to be like that. There used to be.
There was a time. There was a debate that would go on, and people would go, "I respectfully disagree," or "I've never really thought of it that way." But it feels like now, if you say that, you're letting your tribe down, and everyone's got a tribe that they want that they want to get. If doesn't matter how ridiculous your idea is or your comment is, you're still going to get likes from your tribe.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. Just sticking with a little tribe. And you're just talking about saying hello to people down the street. I would say Brighton's quite a good place for that. Brighton seemed quite friendly. When I've been down there a couple of times now, and it seems like quite a good place to live.
It's a brilliant place to live. Unfortunately, we had to move out there because I couldn't afford to buy a house there. So I'm along the coast about 5 or 6 miles in a place called Worthing, which is a lot more sort of Union Jacks and St George's Crosses.
Yeah,
but it's fine, man. It's fine. I mean, you've got to make compromises. My daughter needs. I wanted to buy. I've put off becoming an adult for 47 years. I've done all right.
Yeah.
It's time I tried to be an adult, and so I bought a house and all that stuff. And you've got to start thinking about schools and all that. I mean, she's going to start primary school in a couple of months, and that's when we'll really get an idea of what the people are like around here, and whether it's a nice mixed school or nice mixed classes or whatever it is. Because I don't really want her to grow up in a pure, because she's mixed race, so I don't really want her to grow up in a pure white school and be the odd one out, especially just because of the climate that we have in the UK at the moment, which is just this absolutely poisonous, green lights for right wingers everywhere. So
it's Worthing. Is that the place where you were? The last time I was down, you said you were doing a DJ thing with Duffy. Is that a different place?
That was in Hove, which is part of Brighton. It's where I used to live. I used to live in Hove. So
you still doing DJ sets and stuff like that? Is that?
Yeah. I'm playing on Friday with Pete Wiggs from St Etienne. Do you remember St Etienne?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So me and him are DJing at the same pub actually. So a mate of mine runs a monthly night, and I do it sort of every sort of 6 months or whatever. So me and Pete Wiggs are doing one this Friday. Yeah.
So just a bit of everything then.
Yeah, man, just the total mix. Yeah, I bought a few records over the last 6 months. So I mean, Pete's a really good DJ. He's a really good DJ. So me and him work well together. So just a massive mix of everything from sort of gospel to fuck knows, everything, man. Yeah, everything.
And also, you've got a tour coming up as well. Do you want to plug the tour?
Yeah, so I'm on tour pretty much the whole of November. If you go to, you could go to my Twitter page and have a look, or my Instagram page. The dates are up there. Or you could go to stevemasontheartist.com. All the November dates are up there. It's a pretty comprehensive UK tour. In Scotland, there's an Edinburgh date and a Dundee date. And then in December, I'm going on tour just to do some little Christmas dates. Because I'm a nice guy. And that's just going to be me and my keyboard player. I'll be playing guitar and all that. So that's going to be really kind of small venues, nice and intimate, and just a bit sort of Christmassy, and a bit trying to just forget about the cunts that are running the world for just a little bit. Just give me an hour and a half of your time, and I might be able to make you smile, and So yeah,
I've actually got a few questions, man, before we go before we're asking. Gary Quaver Davis is actually just on top of that. He was asking why you don't play betaband songs in your set when you play live. Is that a deliberate decision?
Yeah, it's a deliberate decision. Yeah, I mean, I hate nostalgia more than anything, and I like to just move forward. I like moving forward, and there'll be a time. I mean, I did a big show at the Barbican.
Yeah, I was there, man. That was
yeah, you were there. Yeah, so that was like a retrospective. So I played a lot of that stuff there, and it was great. It was great to do it, but every now and then I'll stick in the odd thing, But I just think that what I'm doing now is what when you're an artist, what you're doing now is what's relevant to you, and it's what you can put your passion into. It's how you feel now. And
was that Barbarican? I don't know if I'm saying it right. Was that because that was a full orchestra and stuff? Did that not get filmed, or was that not coming out? Or
it did get so yeah. So I don't really know what's happening to that, but yeah, it got filmed in 3D by a company called God, I can't remember what they're called now. And we were just waiting for that company to launch, because they basically were just going around gathering loads and loads of content, filming loads of gigs. And I think it's launched now, but I need to find out what's going on with it. It's just another thing on the list to get done, man. But it was filmed and recorded, and I've seen it, and it's fantastic. But
yeah, it was
I'm
amazing.
I'm hoping at some point that will come out, because it's really good. It's worth seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was brilliant, and I think also I remember. I think if I'm right in saying when your last ever betaband gig at the garage, you didn't play Dry the Rain, if I remember rightly.
It was at the Liquid Rooms.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember, Mark.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember. Well, it might not have been your last Barras gig, but I think it was just a Barras gig. You didn't play it, and I think. Yeah. But I know what you're getting at. It's eventually a song like we sometimes get you play Jeremy Kyle's song, and it's like, nah, I don't think we will. But then every so often, because you've not played it for ages and nobody's expecting it, then it's got the element of surprise, and then I think that's a completely different thing.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. I mean, sometimes if I'm playing, like at Green Man Festival a few years ago, you know, it was an amazing gig, and you just think, all right, let's do Dry the Rain, you know.
Yeah.
But if people expect you to do it, then it's not really very special, you know. It's not special, and I don't want people sitting there at my gigs waiting for me to do it. If people know I don't do it, then they're there to hear my new stuff.
Well, that's it. I mean, there's so many artists that you go to see, and everyone is just waiting for that song, and then they just leave.
Yeah,
and it's not really a good way of running a career if you're actually trying to be a serious artist.
Yeah.
Because I mean, short term you could probably sell some more tickets, but I mean, I think Ian Brown did that for a while as well. He didn't play any Stone Roses songs for a while, and that was quite a brave decision, whether you like Ian Brown or not. But that was it was a brave decision to not do anything. And then I was at the Academy when he did just play it. But I liked his solo stuff, but then when he did play it, it just erupted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In fact, you played with the Stone Roses last year. How did that come about?
Just friends with Manny, and I stayed at his house at some point, and we'd already talked about. I'd already sort of thrown my hat in the ring, and he's. But this time when I was staying with him, he said, "Look, you know, I think it's going to happen this time, because this will probably be the last gig that we do. You know, and I really want to get you on. You know, so it'll be you, Primal Scream, and us." And you know, he wanted some of his friends, you know, at the last ever one. So,
and it was the last ever one by all accounts. It's over since it. That was the last gig, because obviously I was at that one as well. It had a very final feel to it.
Yeah, I think that's it, man. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I've got a question here for Stuart Bestie McDonald, who says, do you remember a band called Alfie? He always thought they felt like the Mancunian first cousins of the betaband and deserved wider recognition.
I do remember Alfie, because they were on Parlophone, and I met Lee. We went to some EMI Christmas party, and I got talking with Lee, and also when I was in Manchester recording Meet the Humans with Craig Potter, I was staying in Chorlton, and Lee lives in Chorlton, so I used to see him in the pub quite a lot. So to be honest with you, I don't really remember much about their music, but yeah, so it's difficult for me to answer that question. But I know that they were I think they were a bit influenced by us. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
I remember their name. I remember one or two, but I never really. I don't really remember much about them either. I think that there was a good hype behind them at one point. Yeah. Also, Stuart's got a follow-up question. He says, also, do you remember anything about Rod Spark? And a preposterous character in the Edinburgh music scene. They had a band together probably 30 years ago.
Yeah, well, the band I was telling you about, the mod band that called me up, and the first time I ever played on an album, that was the band with Rod Spark. Yeah, that was Second Generation. Yeah.
That's the end of that one.
Yeah.
Okay. John McCrory, who used to play bass for the Gyro Babies, shouts to John McCrory.
Yeah.
He says, is the obvious one would be, is there going to be a sneaky wee betaband gig in the future? And a slightly less obvious one would be how he deals with mental health and being a musician. Does he have a specific coping mechanisms, etc.?
Well, there won't be a betaband gig, but the other one. I mean, I was really lucky in that I put a lot of time and effort into getting help. So I got when I started getting serious help, it was about 4 years, sort of on and off for sort of like 2 or 3 month periods, and I was getting hypnosis and stuff, but not really hypnosis like you imagine it. There's different levels of hypnosis, you know, and sometimes it'd be really, really deep, and other times you'd be very, very lucid. And it's hard work. It's really hard work, but it's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And I'm very lucky that I've been about probably six years, something like that, off the meds, and I just don't have that problem in my life anymore. I don't get depressed anymore. I've put it all to bed, and I'm very, very, very lucky. You know, so I really am one of the lucky ones in that I had the time and the money to go and see someone every week. I didn't go through the NHS because it just takes forever. So I am really lucky. But in terms of if you can afford it and you've got the time, it's the best money you'll ever spend, because everybody deserves to just be free of the shackles of that stuff, because it just weighs you down, man, and it's just infects every part of your life, and it's so tiring, and you become so selfish, you know.
Do you ever get anxious before a gig or anything like that, or is it just normal nerves?
Just normal nerves, man. Yeah, totally normal nerves. Yeah.
Cool, man. Glad to hear it, mate. And Jennifer McGinley asks, any more Alien Stadium work planned? She really hope to be more after the EP mini album.
Yeah, good question, Jennifer. Well, I'm actually I've just finished an EP that's coming out in October, and me and Duffy we've done a track on the EP called Headcase, and so that's close to an Alien Stadium track. But yeah, we've been talking about it a lot. Yeah, he's pretty keen to do another one. So basically, at the moment, I'm just converting my attic into a little studio. So once that's done, I think because he only lives about sort of 3 or 4 miles away, so we'll be able to get on and try and get some new stuff. It's certainly something we've both been talking and thinking about. Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant, good stuff, man. Che Woodman again says, when will he be returning to the still stained streets of Fife for Old Jock Radio? Might be in Cooper or Methil, only Dodd and Les Troy know. This is the biggest question of all, surely.
Well, I'd been thinking about it. I haven't been up in Scotland for a while because my mum moved away from Scotland, so my dad's still up there, but I haven't been up for a while. But then I started listening to Old Jock Radio on Spotify, the podcasts, and it made me really, really homesick, and it really made me miss Pete and Sandy and the radio station days, you know, because we did so much of that stuff. So I'm dying to go up there and do it. I'd love to go up. I mean, I wanted to go up before Christmas, but I don't know if that's going to be possible now. I really don't. But Pete's coming down here for a holiday in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, so, Old Jock Radio, when I mean, that I think that first heard of Old Jock Radio is the betaband brought out a DVD, a sort of collection of videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And the Old Jock Radio jingle was in it, and I was just in stitches, and then I tuned in every week after that.
Yeah.
And the demo dump, man, the demo dump was so cruel. You'd put your song up there, and everyone would go on MSN Messenger just ripping it to shreds. And that was quite good. I think that was quite good for our early demos, because obviously we were just uploading songs to MySpace, and everybody just said, "Yeah, that's good." But to get criticised so early on was quite good.
Who was criticising it?
Just everyone on MSN. It was like, everybody's just you know.
A terrible minute. It was me.
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so. It was just the general feeling. I mean,
The listeners.
Yeah, the listeners. Well, everyone was just trying to outdo each other with the funniest takedown of whatever was.
Yeah. And Pete was standing in the middle of it saying that he's impartial.
laughing as he's reading out the sentence, you know what I mean? But in person,
yeah. No, I mean, it was. I mean, I've been listening to the new shows they've been doing, and they're absolutely brilliant. Sandy's really back on form, you know, or Dodd as he's called. Yeah, he's really back on form.
So, any you call that, radio listeners, if you want another podcast to check out, it's Old Jock Radio, which has just came back after, but it's always been a good show. Yeah. And so, hold on, I think I've got. I think
you should. Have you had Pete on or Les or Pete on your podcast?
I've not, but I'm going to do it, man. I think it'd be good to do a wee swap cast because apparently that's what you're supposed to do. But I just started this thing in June. And I've managed to get 10 episodes done. I think this is going to be, there's an 11th one that's not been released yet, but this is the 12th. And I just wanted to do something independently where I didn't have to rely on anyone. And I've just kind of been just doing as much as I can. But I did actually get a couple of words with him at your gig at SWG3, which is brilliant, man. I got a quick word with him there. So maybe drop that in at the end of this show, and I'll drop in the Old Jock Radio jingle as well, because that's probably your only word that I can use without getting a copyright issue. Will I get away with playing any of your tunes? Do you think?
What's that? Sorry.
Will I get away with playing any Steve Mason or betaband tunes in the show, or do you think it's just too risky?
So you'd be. I can't remember who owns the publishing on the betaband stuff now. I just can't remember. Oh, it's Domino. If you play some early betaband stuff and any stuff of my later stuff, you'll be fine because it's Domino that own all that stuff. And if they say anything, let me know and I'll just try and clear it all up. You know.
All right, amazing, mate. Well, maybe just play a wee sample here and there or whatever throughout the show. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Right, brilliant. And man. So Adam Marshall, would you ever do a duet with the Gyros?
Yeah, I mean, if it was the right thing, you know, yeah. I mean, I think with duets and things like that, I mean, it's got to. There's no point in doing it for the sake of it. It's got to be right. And I think that it's like when you asked me to do that remix, I just thought, well, I can't. I don't think I can't make this any better than it is. Yeah. I thought it was great, and
that was Late Night Sketchy, I think. And then
yeah, that's right.
Then I did try a lot. I was aiming to bring Potions to get you to the vocal because I kind of wrote the vocal with you in the hook with you in mind. But by the time Robbie's just such a perfectionist, making sure, well, as far as the guitars go, just making sure those guitars were just right. And then by that point, it was like we'd no time left. It was like we'd 2 days before it went to get printed up in vinyl and stuff like that.
Well, if there's anything else like that, just give me a shout and send it down to me because I can do the vocals here, no problem.
Cool, man. Nice one. So is it? So, man, that's an hour and 45, man. Thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I better go. It's my tea time.
Right. No worries. Well, thank you very much. I hope the tour goes well, man. I'll try and catch you at the Edinburgh gig.
Yeah, man, definitely. Give me a shout if you want to come down.
Right, nice one, mate. All the best, man. Take it easy, man. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.